Tonight, the tense confrontation in the Oval Office between President Trump and the President of South Africa.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting.
President Trump ambushing the President of South Africa with false claims of white genocide in South Africa. President Trump surprising him with a video and articles he claimed prove his point. President Cyril Ramaphosa flatly denied the reports. Tonight, the U.S. is accepting Qatar's controversial gift, that $400 million luxury 747 to be used as Air Force One, before then being turned over to the Trump Foundation. Democrats and many Republicans are calling for him to reject the gift. What he had to say in the Oval Office today when asked. Latest twist tonight in that brazen jailbreak. 2 women are now under arrest, accused of helping the 10 escapees, and another fugitive, a murder suspect, is now back in custody. Tonight, a judge finds the U.S. violated a court order with a sudden deportation flight that may be in Africa tonight. At least 8 people on board. We're joined by the lawyer for one of those deportees who literally does not know where in the world his client is right now, what he wants the government to do. The late season nor'easter hitting the Northeast just as Memorial Day weekend travel gets underway tomorrow, and the Super Bowl winning Eagles and the fate of that famed play, the tush push. The NFL owners voting on whether to ban it. Will the Birds be able to push on? And why go to a concert when the concert can come to you? The legendary punk rock band embarking on what it calls the House Party Tour.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us on this busy Wednesday night. We begin with that tense confrontation in the Oval Office. South Africa's president there to talk trade and foreign aid. Instead, President Trump played a video claiming that it represents genocide against white people in South Africa. Tensions between the two countries have mounted since the president signed an executive order pausing all foreign aid to South Africa, claiming the land of white farmers was being confiscated and some of them killed. The president called for the lights to be dimmed, then played a video purportedly showing South Africans spewing violent rhetoric. From there, the president presented Ramaphosa with a stack of papers he said were articles about white farmers being killed in recent days. President Ramaphosa and the South African team were with Trump, saying the problem is crime, not racism, and his country needs U.S. investment to stop it. Our chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce leads us off.
Tonight, an extraordinary scene in the Oval Office. President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa with false claims the nation is engaged in genocide against white farmers. President Cyril Ramaphosa said he came to the White House to discuss trade.
We are essentially here to reset the relationship between the United States and South Africa.
But Trump had other ideas.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting.
The president insists white South African farmers are being persecuted and murdered on a mass scale. Unproven claims that have been amplified by Elon Musk, a native of South Africa. Though Trump's administration has banned all refugees, they are now making an exception for one group, white South Africans. A plane load arriving in the U.S. just last week.
We have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa.
Reporters asking Trump what it will take to convince him there is no genocide. The South African president jumping in.
What will it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for President. It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends.
But Trump, with the cameras rolling,
turn the lights down,
dimming the lights to present what he claims is evidence. Showing clips of extremists calling for violence, then leafing through articles he says prove it's happening.
Death, 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 horrible death, death, I don't know.
But you know that
pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws.
There is a crime problem in South Africa, but there is no evidence it is racially motivated or amounts to genocide. White people make up only 7% of the country, but own the vast majority of its farmland. Ramaphosa adamant that the video does not represent his government.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people.
South Africa's president then joking that he wishes he could be like Qatar and gift Trump a luxury jet.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I take it. I would take it.
A little ribbing going on there, perhaps. Mary Bruce joins us now from the White House. Mary, any word from South Africa after that occasionally tense meeting in the Oval Office?
Well, Linsey, tonight the spokesman for the South African president telling us of this confrontation that it was, quote, expected, saying we knew that whenever heads of state come to the White House, you get a bit of a show. And again, Linsey, he insisted there is no genocide in South Africa.
Mary Bruce from the White House. Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Today, the Pentagon officially accepted that controversial $400 million luxury 747 from Qatar. President Trump said that he'll soon use it as Air Force One. The president with the Qatari emir last week, adding, "We're going to help each other." The plane may be a gift, but the cost to taxpayers could reach $1 billion to upgrade and secure the plane. And tonight left unanswered whether it would end up at the Trump Library after his term. Former CIA operative and ABC contributor Daryl Blocker is here to discuss that further. But first, here's our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Tonight, the Trump administration is making it official, announcing they will accept that lavish gift from the government of Qatar, a $400 million luxury jet that's been called a flying palace.
They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing.
The Pentagon saying the gift is, quote, in accordance with all federal rules and regulations, and that the plane will eventually serve as Trump's Air Force One. Before that happens, American taxpayers will have to pay for a costly makeover to ensure the jet poses no security risks and will be able to function as the president's plane. The Pentagon says it will, quote, work to ensure proper security measures and functional mission requirements are considered. The Secretary of the Air Force telling Congress the process is already underway.
The Secretary of Defense has directed the Air Force to basically start planning to modify the aircraft.
That process could take months or even years. As ABC News first reported, Attorney General Pam Bondi signed off on a plan for the Air Force to accept the plane as a gift and then transfer ownership to Trump's Presidential Library Foundation shortly before he leaves office. It's unclear if that's part of the final agreement. The Pentagon referred questions to the Air Force saying, quote, details related to the contract are classified. The president was in Qatar just last week, where he heaped praise on its leader.
This is an outstanding man. He's a great man, and we're going to help each other.
He has rejected questions about whether this is legal and ethical and why the United States needs to accept this new Air Force One as a gift from another country.
I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane.
And late today, outrage from the Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer.
This gift screams national security risk. It is bribery in broad daylight. Donald Trump is thumbing his nose at Republicans and practically daring them to stop him.
And John joins us here in New York. And John, it's not just Democrats like Schumer who are crying foul here, even saying that there could be security risks. Some Republicans are joining as well.
Some of the president's Republican allies don't like the idea of accepting a plane from Qatar. There are concerns about Qatar being a country tied to Iran, tied to China, tied to Hamas, and don't like the idea of accepting a gift like this. Some of the president's allies. By the way, on that question about whether or not it will still go to the president's Library Foundation, I just spoke to the White House press secretary, to Caroline Leavitt. She told me the plane is still intended to go to the president's library. The details of that part of the agreement, however, she told me, are still being ironed out.
So even though they're saying that this is a gift to the country, none of his successors would ever be able to fly this.
The original agreement that was signed off on by Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said that it would be transferred to the library by January 1st of 2029. Now, again, as I just spoke to the press secretary, they say that part of the agreement is still being ironed out. So we'll see when the actual transfer would happen.
All right, Jonathan Karl, thanks so much.
Thank you.
As we discussed, Air Force One is no ordinary plane. It's outfitted with special defensive features designed to protect the president and those who are traveling with him or her. To tell us more is former CIA operative and ABC contributor Daryl Blocker. Thanks so much for being with us, Daryl. First off, what are the modifications that must be considered for this 747?
Well, Lindsay, the only good news about modifications is that it is a Boeing airplane. So hopefully the Boeing engineers and the people who are responsible for selling that airframe to Qatar will already be ahead of the game. But essentially, it's going to have to be stripped down to its wirings. Every hollow space, everywhere you could put an electronic device is going to have to be verified many times over.
As a former CIA operative, what gives you pause about accepting such a gift from Qatar?
You know, for my entire career, if I received a gift in excess of more than, I think it was $150, you would have to turn that item in. This item cost more in today's dollar than the Louisiana Purchase. So just kind of wrap your brain around that, which doubled the size of the United States, 340 by today's dollars, 300 million by today's dollars. So this is not a gift. This is something given to the president, and Air Force One is bigger than just one president. It's actually just the call sign and not the airframe. So whatever plane POTUS is on is Air Force One, whether it's the Qatar gift or not.
As we heard in John Carl's reporting today, the Pentagon said the Secretary of Defense accepted the plane in accordance with all federal rules and regulations. Your response to that?
I would say they need to go back and take a closer look. I think there are probably statutes and certainly things that were not considered when they accepted this. And they can talk about going to the Defense Department all they want, but the Commander-in-Chief is the President of the United States. So essentially, the gift goes to him, no matter which ministry or department ends up housing it.
President Trump and the White House have said that they'd like to have the jet retrofitted for use by year's end. Yet, as you said, with regard to Boeing having some knowledge here, it's taken 7 years to develop 2 new Air Force One jets, and they're still years away from delivery. Are you concerned that corners could be cut?
My fear is that whatever airframe comes is not going to have the full package of what the president and all presidents before him were entitled to. It's not a simple airframe. It's not like any other Boeing 747. It is specifically retrofitted with programs and with capabilities that no one should know about.
Former CIA operative and ABC contributor Darrell Blocker, we thank you so much for your time. Now to the latest in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial. Let's bring in Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katursky and ABC News contributor Bernardo Villalona. Both of you have been inside the courtroom every day, following every move. Aaron, let's start with you. Give us a sense of what that federal agent talked about as far as invading Diddy's mansion.
It was a raid in March 2024, and the jury has now seen the spoils of it. The agent said that they took guns, they took drugs, and they broke through the front fence to get to it all. And the jury saw pictures. In some cases, they saw the real thing, including a loaded .45 caliber handgun that he said was found in a suitcase, AR-15 style, assault style rifles on a shelving unit in the main bedroom, the same shelving unit that contained 7-inch red platform heels, lingerie, and baby oil. And I think the point was for federal prosecutors to give the jury the visual proximity. The guns and the freak-off supplies were in the same place, because the whole theory of the case is that Combs would use violence and the threat of violence, including from guns, to coerce women into these sex acts.
Bernardo, what kind of link do you think that the prosecution is trying to draw here?
So the prosecution, first off, they're trying to definitely corroborate the testimony of Cassie and other witnesses that are going to testify about the ingredients, the supplies used in freak-offs, and also that firearms were present at some point. Especially remember that Mr. James, when he testified about the infamous incident of them going after to go to Suge Knight, and he had 3 guns that was on his lap. So again, corroboration. And also, when we talk about racketeering conspiracy or RICO, you usually think about mob-style gangsters. What else? Another way to show some mob-style gangster than putting Diddy as the leader of this criminal enterprise. And guess what? With AR-15s.
And Aaron, one of the witnesses in Diddy's inner circle actually planned on pleading the Fifth What happened there?
He was granted immunity. George Kaplan served about 15 months as one of Sean Combs's personal assistants, and he testified about two important things for the prosecution. One, he said he would procure drugs for Sean Combs, and remembered one case getting him MDMA after Diddy handed him a bunch of cash, said, go talk to this guy. Maybe that's why he wanted immunity, to avoid any prosecution for procuring illegal drugs. We don't know what else he's going to say, but he also talked about stocking the hotel rooms with supplies for freak-offs, the baby oil, the Astroglide lubricant, and he talked about cleaning up afterwards. He said he tidied up the rooms to make it look like it did before Combs got there. He said he noticed baby oil everywhere and he had to clean it up. And the prosecutor, Maureen Comey, said, well, why did you have to clean it up? Why not let the hotel staff do that? And he said it was understood that when you worked for Sean Combs, part of the thing was you had to protect his reputation.
What could Kaplan's immunity mean for the defense?
So, of course, the defense is going to go into the immunity in the sense of you're willing to say anything because you wanted that immunity, because you did not want to be prosecuted, because you wanted to save yourself. But I don't know, Linsey, because I was inside the courtroom when Kaplan first came in to plead the fifth, because this was done outside of the presence of the jury. And when Mr. Kaplan walked in, Diddy looked at him and they smiled at each other and kind of gave each other the head nod. So I was like, oh, wait, the fix is in. So Kaplan took the stand and he said, of course, that I'm going to exercise my Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. And that's how he got immunity. But then again, when he testified in front of the jury, you didn't see that connection there.
Aaron, we also heard from a sex trauma expert, a psychologist. What was the gist of her testimony?
There's something so voyeuristic about this whole trial, this lurid look into the private and often violent sex life of Sean Combs. And what this trauma expert did was root it in psychology to sort of say, in a general sense, that you feel sometimes as a victim the need to stay in a relationship, that you feel like you can't get out of it, that sometimes you curl up in a ball when you're getting beat so you're not antagonizing your abuser further. She was speaking generally because expert witnesses can't interview victims as part of their testimony, but she mimicked things that Cassie Ventura had said on the witness stand. The defense spent a lot of time on cross-examination trying to suggest she was a hired gun for the prosecutors because they paid him, they called her. But she did give a sense that this kind of victimization and what Cassie had already described is felt by a lot of abuse victims.
I know we were initially expecting Kid Cudi's testimony today. Sounds like that's going to be tomorrow. And it seems that that could be very significant for the prosecution.
Absolutely, because Kid Cudi is going to be able to give the prosecution the racketeering predicate act that they wanted. So for racketeering conspiracy, the prosecutor has to prove two of those racketeering acts. And one of those racketeering acts is arson. And what are the allegations having to deal with Kid Cudi? That supposedly Sean Combs blew up his car. So with his testimony, they'll get in that predicate act, but also in terms of the jealousy, in terms of at one point that there was a sit down that Cassie testified to between Cassie, Sean Combs, and Kid Cudi, that in the end, Kid Cudi was like, what about my car? And Sean Combs was like, what car? So you're going to get that information in, the jealousy and just the rage that Sean Combs had. So buckle up, because I think tomorrow is going to be a huge day for the prosecution inside that courtroom.
Certainly seems that way. And Aaron, you said it best. There is a voyeuristic quality to all of this, right? That people are they just want to know.
Yes.
Bernarda, Aaron, we thank you both so much for your time. Tonight, the Department of Justice is moving to end federal oversight of the Minneapolis and Louisville, Kentucky police departments. It comes nearly 5 years after the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor sparked nationwide protests and calls for police reform. Our Alex Perez reports from Minneapolis. Alex?
Hey, Linsey, the announcement from the Department of Justice to drop those consent decrees comes as many here at the site where George Floyd was killed are preparing to mark the 5th anniversary of his death. Now, the DOJ has filed a motion to dismiss Biden-era consent decrees made with both the Minneapolis Police Department and with the police department in Louisville, Kentucky. The decrees called for major reform at both departments in the wake of the police killings of Floyd in Minneapolis and Breonna Taylor in Louisville. After after the DOJ's Civil Rights Division found evidence of racial disparities and excessive use of force. But the Trump-era Department of Justice, in a statement, calls the decrees a failed experiment of handcuffing local leaders and police departments. But despite today's federal move, officials in both Minneapolis and Louisville today announced they will move forward with and adhere to the expansive reforms in those consent decrees, even if the Department of Justice is no longer requiring them to do so. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara pointing out the city has a similar consent decree agreement with the state that remains in place, telling me for his department, the reform will continue.
It does not change the reality that we are committed to rebuilding this police department to keep people safe and to have more and more people believe that they can trust the police department here.
The Department of Justice also announced they will be dropping ongoing investigations into 6 police departments across the country. Lindsay?
Alex, thank you. Tonight, 2 women are under arrest accused of helping the fugitives who escaped in that massive Louisiana jailbreak. What police say the women did to help them avoid capture? Faith Abube reports from New Orleans.
Tonight, 2 women arrested and charged for allegedly helping multiple fugitive inmates evade capture after that stunning jailbreak in New Orleans.
We have said this from Friday and will continue to say it over and over again. If you help them, you will be prosecuted.
Police say Courtney Harris was in contact with 1 inmate before that escape early Friday morning. Harris accused of transporting 2 escapees to multiple locations. And Corvante Baptiste accused of getting 19-year-old Corey Boyd food while he was hiding. Overnight, authorities arresting Boyd at his grandmother's house. So far, only 5 of the 10 fugitives have been recaptured. And tonight, an alleged victim opening up about the moment he learned the suspect in this case had escaped, asking ABC to only use his voice for safety reasons.
I was thinking about getting out of town because this guy could come back and look for my address and come in and shoot me, on the couch.
4 jail workers have been suspended, and a jail plumber, Sterling Williams, is now behind bars, accused of helping the inmates carry out the largest jailbreak in Louisiana history.
Our thanks to Faith. Now to the storm set to hit the Northeast, then the nor'easter building, and right behind it, Washington, D.C., up through New York City and Boston, bracing for impact just as millions travel for the Memorial Day holiday. Our chief meteorologist, Lee Goldberg, from our partner station in New York, WABC, is tracking it all for us. Hi, Lee.
Hey, Lindsay, just terrible timing. And we've seen some heavy rain across western Pennsylvania today, even a parting shot of severe weather. There was a tornado watch near Pittsburgh. That expired. But that heavy rain starts to link up with a developing coastal low. We've got heavy rain tonight, Philly into New York, and then all along the I-95 corridor into that morning commute. I mean, a real soaking rain and wind driven as well, with some gusts that could actually go 50 miles an hour along the coast because this storm is intensifying and the brunt is headed into New England. So Hartford to Boston later in the day, even some coastal flooding, very heavy rain. And the storm is very slow to move out. The rain will get lighter in New York tomorrow evening, but we've got some wet snow in the high elevations on Friday morning and still some showers wrapping around the storm along with chilly temperatures. It's going to be a slow start to the holiday weekend in the Northeast. Much nicer, though, by Memorial Day. Lindsay?
Okay, at least there's that. Lee, thank you. President Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson are mounting a pressure campaign to try to get the president's massive tax cut and spending bill passed. But some Republican holdouts are concerned over projections President Trump's bill could add trillions to the deficit over the next decade. ABC's Jay O'Brien is on the Hill.
Tonight, a last-ditch effort from President Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson, turning up the heat on more than a dozen House Republican holdouts to pass the mega bill full of the president's campaign promises, from tax cuts to border security.
We're doing very well. It's very close.
The White House warning tonight failure to pass the bill would be a betrayal.
Why aren't the holdouts listening to you and the president?
They are. There's a lot of listening and a lot of discussion. It's been very productive.
Officially called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the package extends Trump's 2017 tax cuts, lifts federal income tax on tips and overtime, and earmarks nearly $50 billion to resume construction of the border wall. It slashes federal spending by more than $1.5 trillion, including cuts to food assistance and Medicaid, which could leave more than 8 million Americans without health insurance over a decade. But GOP hardliners pushing for even steeper cuts angered the bill would add trillions to the deficit over the next 10 years.
The president wants this passed now.
Well, it's not done yet.
Our thanks to Jay O'Brien. The Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo after congressional Republicans recommended he be charged with lying to a subcommittee over his handling of nursing home patients during the pandemic. Cuomo has been the leading Democratic candidate for mayor to challenge Eric Adams. Federal prosecutors abandoned a corruption case against Adams in February, citing a desire to free him up to cooperate with the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. A spokesperson for Cuomo today called the investigation against Cuomo, quote, election interference, plain and simple. Today, the U.S. Army began the process of shipping tanks cross-country to Washington, D.C. in preparation for the June 14th parade celebrating the Army's 250th birthday. The tank here coming from a Texas military base. The June 14th date also coincides with President Trump's birthday. The celebration has stoked speculation that Trump is using the event to get the kind of grand military parade he sought in his first term. That event was canceled when cost estimates topped some $90 million. The owner of the NFL's Indianapolis Colts, Jim Irsay, died peacefully in his sleep today. The team made the announcement just a short time ago. His father bought the franchise in 1972 when young Jim was 12 years old. At 24, he then became the youngest general manager in NFL history. The team said he made philanthropy a daily endeavor and never hesitated to help countless organizations and individuals live better lives. Irsay was 65 years old. Still ahead, it's the fan fall that shocked the country. Now new charges have been filed in connection to the incident at a baseball game caught on camera. But first, another fight over another deportation flight after DHS says migrants were sent to a war-torn country that wasn't their own. How this happened in our conversation with an attorney for one of the 8 migrants believed to be on that plane about the chaos and confusion surrounding the case.
The truth is, I don't know where my client is. He's disappeared, as far as I know.
Welcome back, everyone. A new fight is unfolding in court over yet another deportation flight. This time, DHS confirmed migrants from countries like Cuba, Vietnam, and Myanmar were deported to South Sudan, a country that obviously is not their own. At least 8 men, according to DHS, all convicted of violent crimes, were placed on a deportation flight from Texas to war-torn African nation, but their current whereabouts are unknown. Attorneys for the migrants say their clients were deported without their knowledge and were not afforded due process. This happens as the legal battle surrounding those contentious deportation flights to El Salvador keep unfolding. And as Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man who was wrongfully deported, is still in limbo. During a hearing today in Boston, federal judge Brian Murphy demanded answers from the DHS about this new flight and questioned whether the administration had violated a court order that he had issued back in April, which bars the government from deporting migrants without giving them the chance to contest their removal. In a press conference, DHS officials said that the migrants were sent to South Sudan because their countries of origin refused to accept them and insisted the department is fully compliant with the law and court orders. Joining us now is Jonathan Ryan, attorney for one of the 8 migrants believed to have been deported to a country that's not their own, South Sudan. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Of course, there's a lot of confusion surrounding your client's case. He's originally from Myanmar, but this administration first tried to send him to Libya. Now you believe he was deported to South Sudan. Walk us through his case and how this all came about.
Well, just over the past 5 days, this gentleman has been notified that he was going to be deported to several countries. I met him for the first time last Friday. And then on Monday, after being transferred to a different detention center, he was first provided papers saying that he was going to be sent to South Africa. It was later in the day that he received a new document now stating that he was going to be sent to South Sudan. That was on Monday. By Tuesday morning, he had been deported. He was on an airplane heading out of this country. But when we went to the hearing on Tuesday afternoon, now the government was claiming that they were in fact sending him back to Myanmar, the country that he is from. The truth is that I don't know where my client is. He's disappeared, as far as I know.
So you just said you have no idea where in the world your client is. Give us a sense of how unusual that is.
I've been working as an immigration attorney for more than 20 years. I have been working out of this particular detention center for about that long as well. I have never seen anything close to this kind of situation. This really is a case of first impression for me. I don't think that our government has ever engaged in this kind of chicanery, quite frankly. And the judge, by his perplexion, by his demeanor, seemed to also be relatively shocked at the behavior of the government.
What has the Department of Homeland Security said about your client's whereabouts?
Very little. And what they have said has been under seal. Essentially, the government and the judge retired to a separate room where none of us who were attending the hearing could hear, and they discussed those matters privately. The government claimed that it was top secret, sensitive information.
Have you heard directly from your client since this came down?
No, I have not heard from my client. I have no idea where he is. He's incommunicado at this time.
When was the last time that you talked to him?
The last time that I spoke with him was on Monday when he called me from the detention center after receiving the notifications that he was going to be sent to South Africa. That's the last that I heard from him.
Judge Brian Murphy said today in court his preliminary order was indeed violated by this administration by deporting these migrants without due process, and questioned whether the deportees had a chance to object to their removal to a third country. However, he did not order the plane to turn back, but did order the administration to conduct reasonable fear interviews, which could take place wherever the deportees are located right now. Do you hope that this could bring some justice to your client's case?
I would argue that he should be granted a reasonable fear interview and that he should be allowed to return to this country to pursue his immigration case again. But we really don't know. There was some discussion about how the government would arrange such interviews, given that they are now in a different time zone. They are currently sitting on an airplane. How are they going to have contact with their attorneys? How are they going to be able to research the country conditions of whatever country they're being sent to? There's still a lot of questions left unanswered. And unfortunately, it appears that in some ways, these clients might be in a worse off situation because of what the government is doing, and that the government is eventually getting what it wants. It's put these people in a very vulnerable situation. And let's be also clear, the same government that is sending them to these countries is the same government that's going to decide whether they have a reasonable fear. So the fox is literally guarding the hen house in this matter.
Well, you said that there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. I suppose chief among them is this legal?
That's right. And by the expressions of the judge today, it was clear that he believed that what is happening is not legal. In fact, the judge even raised that the government could be in criminal contempt for what it's done. And that's not just the top levels of the government, but it could include people flying the airplane. Everyone from top to bottom who engaged in this activity is vulnerable to being held in criminal contempt of the judge's order. And that really affirms the extent to which the judge is displeased with the government's action in this case.
Jonathan Ryan, so appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the retail giant that announced its sales are down, what it could mean for you and your wallet. And can the Eagles push on? The fate of the tush push finally decided. We'll tell you if the Super Bowl champs can keep their signature play. Welcome back, everyone. The NBA's conference finals are officially underway. 4 teams are looking for their chance at championship glory. The Oklahoma City Thunder and Minnesota Timberwolves are facing off in the Western Conference Finals, while the New York Knicks and Indiana Pacers battle for the Eastern Conference title. It's a unique and possibly historic foursome. Let's look at the conference finals by the numbers. The most recent title for any of these teams was actually back in 1979. That championship was won by the Seattle Supersonics, who years later would become the Thunder. Meanwhile, 2 of these teams, the Timberwolves and Pacers, are seeking their first NBA titles. As for the Knicks, this is their first conference finals appearance in 25 years. The Thunder is the highest seeded team remaining with a league-high 68 wins this season. The hottest ticket, though, might be right here in New York, where tickets just to get into Game 1 were listed at more than $500 on TickPick this afternoon, just hours before tip-off. Meanwhile, attending Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals in Oklahoma City tomorrow, not quite as pricey, with tickets for $130 on TickPick as recently as this afternoon. But regardless of who ultimately wins the title, this year will mark the 7th different NBA champion in the past 7 seasons. The first time in league history that that's ever happened. And still ahead, she's one of the most famous women in basketball. Now she's taking her experiences on and off the court and putting them into a book. Our conversation with Dawn Staley about the sport she loves, her home city of Philly, and how the influence of her mother helped to shape her life. Overpriced concert tickets? It ends tonight. The rock band throwing it back with their offer to play live at your house party. Charges in the shocking fan fall caught on camera at a baseball game. The fate of the controversial Philadelphia Eagles play known as the Tush Push. Will we see it on the field next season? And why Target says sales are down and how it would impact you, the customer. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown.
Charges have now been filed in connection to this shocking moment from last month, when a 20-year-old fan fell out of the stands and plummeted 21 feet at a Pittsburgh Pirates game. That fan's friend, age 21, has now been charged with giving him alcohol at the game, which they argue led to the man falling during the bottom of the 7th inning while celebrating. The man's now out of the ICU and preparing for rehab. 2 beloved elephants who used to live at the Los Angeles Zoo have officially been transferred. Amid concern over their whereabouts when it seemed they'd suddenly disappeared, zoo officials have confirmed 40-year-old Billy and 59-year-old Tina have arrived safely at the Tulsa Zoo. Last month's announced plan to transfer them to the Tulsa Zoo was facing a lawsuit. Advocates wanted them to be retired to a sanctuary in Tennessee rather than being sent to another zoo. The LA Zoo said the elephants will receive the same individualized care and love they had before. A British judge has ordered Chris Brown be released on a $6.7 million bail. The Grammy-winning singer was charged last week, facing allegations of striking a music producer with a liquor bottle and then beating him at a London nightclub back in 2023. 36-year-old Brown will be able to resume his world tour with another court appearance scheduled for mid-June. As for the music producer, he's also been charged in the attack. Target sales are down as they plan to raise some prices, and they blame in part President Trump's tariffs. The retailer says sales in the first quarter hit $23.8 billion, down from $24.5 billion a year ago. Target says customers just aren't shopping as much for non-essentials, citing backlash for ending diversity initiatives and uncertainty over those tariffs. But they didn't give details on price increases because of tariffs, at least for now, instead saying it would continue to make adjustments to pricing. Philadelphia freedom. Despite strong opposition among NFL owners, the infamous Tush Push play, a signature of the Philadelphia Eagles, will live to see another day. Sources tell ESPN the proposal to ban the play fell 2 votes short at the owners' meeting in Minnesota. Opponents argue it's not a legitimate football play. Why go to a concert when the concert can come to you? That's the thinking of the All-American Rejects. The punk rock band is embarking on what it calls the House Party Tour, playing in fans' backyards, bowling alleys, and other intimate spaces. The band, known for hits like Dirty Little Secret and Gives You Hell, says the idea came after hearing about concert-goers financing festival tickets to see their favorite artists perform. If you want to wake up one day with their tour bus outside your front lawn, the band has a sign-up form on its Instagram.
She is a basketball icon on the court and on the sidelines, a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, former WNBA 6-time All-Star and 3-time NCAA tournament champion as the coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, and also an author. Dawn Staley is here to talk about her new book, Uncommon Favor, Basketball, North Philly, My Mother, and the life lessons I learned from all 3. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You have said that there is no other description other than uncommon favor to describe your life and yourself. Why is that?
I mean, when my life is filled with so much, I mean, it's plentiful of accolades, of success, of sacrifice, of everything. Mm-hmm. There isn't another description besides uncommon favor, because it's not supposed to happen in a way that's happened for me in my life. I think I have a life full of multiple lives. Like all the things that have come my way have been truly unimaginable. When you're a kid, you're reading a book and it takes you to all these places. For me, I'm living out of the pages of now this book, Uncommon Favor, to the nth degree. And I'm just happy to share my journey with everyone.
And you write in the book, home travels with you always, and nowhere is that truer than with North Philly. How did Philadelphia raise you to be such a great player and ultimately coach?
Yeah. Well, growing up in the projects in North Philly, the Raymond Rosen housing projects, if you're on the outside looking in, you would think probably the biggest thing would be crime-ridden, right? So much negativity. For me, I think the direct opposite. There was discipline. There were manicure lawns. There were camaraderie. There were so many life lessons that, from what I learned on that time, has carried me.
What is it though? What's the secret sauce? Because you have a lot of great players who aren't necessarily great coaches, and vice versa. How have you been so successful at both?
I think the position, I'm a point guard, so I'm a coach on the court. I think I'm a really good listener and observer and I have good discernment when it comes to people and what their MO is. And I try to find a way where we all can be happy, and also try to figure out who can take us to this place or that place, and who needs to kind of play a role.
You talked about relatability. What is it that you do in order to get trust from your players, in order to empower them?
I think it's communication. It's key. I allow my players to talk to me. Like I'm a better resource when you talk to me, when I can hear from you, when I can hear your voice. I mean, I've been around the game long enough to know that nothing new is coming my way. No new problems. It's just all recycled problems. So I try to get my players to talk to me because there isn't anything new. Somebody did what you think is the worst thing in the world. Somebody did that already. And this is how we handled it. I talk about it in the book. One of the lessons is look, sound, feel. If something looks, sounds, or feels off, you got to address it. If it looks, sounds, or feels good to you, then you have to encourage it, and you want more of that positive output in your life.
You've coached so many stars who are now in the WNBA. What do you see the direction of the WNBA going? I mean, it feels like there's a lot of momentum.
There is. I think we are in high demand. And just women's basketball in general is in high demand. Collegiately, high demand. NIL, I think women are thriving in that space. Those women are taking their talents to the WNBA.
You have said before that you will never coach in the WNBA or the NBA. Why is that? And is there anything that might be able to change your mind?
I'm very passionate about young people. And I know the WNBA is getting younger and younger, but collegiately, I think I can make the most and the best impression on young people so we can have a WNBA, so the WNBA can be filled with young people that really understand how to take care of the game. Because if you don't, it could be gone like this. But I want to coach people who have an understanding of how to navigate through this space and thrive in it and take our game to the next level.
Final question, Knicks or Pacers?
Knicks. I had the Knicks. I did. I had the Knicks.
Okay. All right. We will see starting tonight.
Tonight.
All right. Dawn Staley, we thank you so much. Uncommon Favor, Basketball, North Philly, My Mother, and the Life Lessons I Learned from All Three is now available wherever books are sold. And our parent company, Disney, is known, of course, for telling stories. Now a new program is making children the face of those tales and giving them a place in the spotlight. Our Deborah Roberts has more.
With the school year winding down across America, a brand new way of putting on the annual play is taking center stage.
In your position!
The kids here at PS 88 have been practicing The Lion King for months now, and finally today they get a chance to show their parents and their teachers what they've been up to.
Inside this elementary school in Queens, New York,
come on,
4th and 5th graders are part of a new pilot program, getting them ready for their big stage debut.
So are you nervous? Are you excited? What are you feeling at this moment?
Nervous and excited.
Nervous and excited.
Yeah, I agree. My name is Dimitri. My role is Rafiki.
My name is Gabriella. My role is Pumbaa.
My name is Byron. My character is Old Simba.
Projection!
It's a program called Stage Connect within Disney Musicals in Schools, Disney's ABC's parent company.
There's something transformational about theater. It gives them permission to find their own voice. They learn the importance of dedication and showing up.
Let's try that again.
It's a new, free online toolkit teaching schools how to put on shows.
That was excellent.
Anyone with an internet connection can now learn how to put on a Disney show.
And these are going to be shows that these kids know, The Lion King.
Yeah.
Teaching, directing,
step, cross, back,
and choreography, set, costume, and prop design, all from the actual Broadway pros.
These are hosted by L. Stephen Taylor from The Lion King.
The actual Lion King performers.
He plays Mufasa.
Welcome to the Disney Musicals in Schools Stage Connect platform.
Let's get in our position.
Special education teacher Carol Bauer is the director.
To be able to have this Disney Connect where they teach you and show you how to do a production.
Yeah, it's priceless, priceless.
What kinds of changes have you seen in them?
I just see the confidence level explodes. Their language explodes.
So it goes beyond just the stage.
You take it away. You take it with you. It's forever.
With minutes to go until rehearsal, the actors are ready and grateful.
Why is this important?
Well, you make friends along the way. Confident. Made me like theater way more than I did before.
So you're learning things about yourself.
Yes, very much.
And with their families in their seats, it's showtime. The reviews from the audience, raves.
Seeing that confidence build has been amazing. They come out of their shell and it's such a beautiful thing to see. It really just brings the whole school together.
Bravo, too cute. Our thanks to Deborah for that. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us.